and the Biden campaign starting to hone in on its likely opponent in the general election, Donald Trump. Take a look.
Whether democracy is still America's sacred cause is the most urgent question of our time. And it's what the 2024 election is all about. The choice is clear. Donald Trump's campaign is about him, not America, not you. Donald Trump's campaign is obsessed with the past, not the future. He's willing to sacrifice our democracy, put himself in power. Our campaign is different.
Joining us now, Principal Deputy Campaign Manager for President Biden's re-election bid, Quentin Fulks. It's good to have you on the set with us here in Washington. Coming off the GOP debate last night and also the Trump town hall, what is the Biden campaign reaction, especially to what was shown on Fox last night?
Look, I mean, last night I think Americans saw a split screen with the Republican Party and what they want to do. Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis on one side and Donald Trump on the other, both, praising out-of-touch things with the American people, doubling down on ripping away freedoms from the American people. And this week alone was a stark contrast that I think our campaign has really put the focus very clear that this is going to be a choice. We saw President Biden in Pennsylvania and South Carolina making sure that voters know that we have to stand up for American freedoms and democracy. And then we saw what Republicans do. I mean, Donald Trump saying that he wished the economy would crash. It's very clear he is not concerned about American voters. He is only in this for himself and for revenge and retribution.
Kathy?
Some polling has suggested that the democracy message that the president has made so forcefully over the last week is one that resonates with Democrats, at least, but not so much with independent voters. How do you shift it now to make this about their daily lives so that when they're going to the polling stations, they're thinking, right, there's the economy that's important to me, and actually democracy is important to my daily life?
Well, what I would say to that is that, our defense of that is that polls don't vote, voters do. And President Biden has been preaching this from the beginning since he got in this race. He ran to restore the fabric of our nation, the soul of our nation. But what I would say to those independent voters is that I think economic freedom, the freedom to provide for your families, is something that they're concerned about. And when Donald Trump is saying that he wishes the economy would crash, he's not thinking about those firefighters or teachers. He's thinking about himself. And so they care about that. I think those voters would also care about the freedom to send their kids to school and be safe. Donald Trump isn't concerned about that. When mass shootings happen in our country, Donald Trump says we just have to get over it. He's saying, when people say, wow, man, you're doubling down on whipping away a woman's right to choose, those independent women, I don't think that they would say, well, that's okay for him to say because we have to win elections. So, look, democracy is something that I think these independent voters care about, and we're going to continue to make that case to them.
Sam?
Back to Nick Saban.
No.
James Clyburn this Sunday was asked about the state campaign. He's optimistic, obviously, but he did say something that I thought was interesting. He said he's very worried about the campaign's inability to reach black voters and explain to them more or less the accomplishments that Biden's had in office. Is he wrong to be worried?
Look, first of all, I want to very level set this. Nobody, no administration has accomplished what the Biden-Harris administration has accomplished for the African-American community. We're talking about black wealth being up 60%. We're talking about the racial wealth gap being the lowest that has ever been in recorded history. Record low unemployment for black Americans. Our campaign has to continue to communicate with these voters. We're not taking any of them for granted. We came out of the gate very early with very large buys and constituency media communicating with these voters. And then lastly, they're the ones that have the most at stake in this election. They know what Donald Trump is going to do. They've seen it before. He's had 4 years to show them that he doesn't care about them. And every single day since he has left office, he has done something or said something.
Just quickly, why do you think they have not, at least according to James Clyburn, why do you think they have not registered the accomplishments that you laid out? Why do you think they are not with you right now?
Well, look, I think that I don't necessarily buy into that. I think that, won't accept the premise of that question. I don't think that African-American voters aren't with us. I think African-American voters are concerned about their, daily lives, and we have to put that into focus for them and let them know that this is a choice, and we're going to continue to do that. I'm proud of the work that our campaign has done. I'm proud of the accomplishments that this president has gotten done and the promises that he's kept. I also think that that's a big piece, too, because American voters generally feel taken for granted when it comes to American politics, and I think the fact that President Biden said that he was going to do something, and has gone into office and done just that is another piece of the argument that we're going to continue to make.
Our senior citizen correspondent, Mark Leibovich,
Elder
is here.
statesman.
Elder statesman has a question for you.
Yeah, Meals on Wheels. No, I guess, are we going to see more of Biden doing speeches like this? I mean, is he going to become more of the, is it going to become, are we going to see more of him sort of leading the cycle and leading the conversation like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, the president has been out and about since April. He's been doing it. Voters don't make a distinction between an official speech and a political speech. But the rhetoric and the tone in which you're talking about, I mean, we have to take that case to voters. The president and the vice president are our best validators in this. And so we have to make sure that he's out and about. He's going to continue to do that, and he's going to do it forcefully.
So last night, Fox viewers saw Donald Trump normalized again, not really asked about anything super crazy or potentially criminal that he is accused of, 4 indictments, fraud suits, rape, whatever, none of that. Are high-profile Biden surrogates going to go on Fox News to counter this?
Yeah, look, we're going to have to be everywhere.
But are you going to get on Fox News?
Yeah. I mean, I'd go on Fox News anytime they want. I'd go on Fox News.
Okay. So is that going to? I think it takes 2 to make that happen. And so are there plans?
I mean, if they're interested in entertaining the conversation and having an open conversation about truth and want to, really pose questions that the American people care about, we're happy to go. I mean, we have nothing to hide there.
Right.
They don't want to ask the tough questions. They don't want to push these candidates to talk about real things. They're, on, personal revenge tours when it comes to, politics today. And that's precisely why nothing's getting done. But happy to have that conversation and send our surrogates on there to have the conversation about what's at stake in this election.
All right. Principal Deputy Campaign Manager for President Biden's re-election bid, Quentin Fulks. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Greatly appreciate
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you all.
Willie.